this movie. Hereditary stars Toni, Collette, Alex Wolfe, and is directed by Ari Aster. Every now and then you will go to a movie that will suck your soul right out of you and throw it on the floor, and then it will take a hammer and beat the shit out of your soul with that hammer. That's Hereditary. That's what Hereditary did to me. As a matter of fact, I did a podcast recently with my good friends Zachary Shevich and Art from the A to Z show. And he also has Let Me Explain. But yeah, and we talked Hereditary for a good bit. And I was going to review this movie like a week ago. But this is one of those horror movies that it just sits there in your head and it just percolates forever. And there's just so many profound things that happen in a movie like this that you're not ready. I wasn't ready to sit down and really review this yet. So I guess doing that podcast with them was kind of cathartic. Still took me a couple days to sit down and review the movie. So this review's late, but yeah, if you're watching, thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, this movie, there's a lot to discuss. It will be a spoiler review after the rating, because I'm sure it's still a new release, and I'm sure there's a lot that haven't seen it. And this is the type of movie that I want you to go see, especially if you're a big horror fan. But this is just a very well-made film. It really is. And I think this requires repeat viewings. I do. I think you're going to get more out of this on the second viewing than you will the first one. I haven't seen it a second time, but I already know that I need to watch this again. So know that before going into this review. So anyway, quick plot synopsis. Without jumping into any spoilers, this really involves this family that's just dysfunctional. Like, there are cracks, like heavy cracks in this family, and it all starts with a funeral. And Toni Collette plays Annie, and at the beginning of the movie, her mother dies, and then she gives this eulogy that's not like your normal eulogy. There's almost like a bit of disdain in her voice, almost maybe a little bit of relief and exhaustion in her voice. You could tell that there was definitely some strain in this relationship between Annie and her mother. And then we're introduced to Charlie, who is Annie's daughter, and Charlie is very, very eccentric. And if you've seen the trailers, you know that Charlie sticks out like a sore thumb, for lack of a better phrase. She's just a unique looking character in this movie. And I think that's for a reason. But she makes this weird sound too, this like sound. Hopefully my mic picked that up. But yeah, she just makes this unique clucking sound, which comes into the movie later. And then you got her son, Alex. Alex is really, I think, the biggest victim of all this. He's kind of in the middle of the whole thing. He is constantly stressed out. And I think there are a lot of teenage boys out there and girls that are stressed out. And I guess that's my biggest thing about this movie that I love so much, is how it really takes the family dynamic and just cracks it wide open and sticks its head in there and looks deep. And I think all families have those cracks, and we don't see them out in our normal lives when we go out into the public, when we go to the grocery store, when we go to the gas station, wherever. But inside these walls, every family has cracks. Every family has maybe even like dark secrets or just darkness in general. And this movie explores that. And that is highly refreshing. It's highly refreshing to see a horror movie that sets the horror over here, and we'll get back to you. But first, I'm going to dig into this family and see what's going on with them. And once we're done with them, then we'll go back and we'll grab the horror, and then we're going to just plop it right on top of it, and then we're going to scare the shit out of you. That's what this movie does. And I think that's what the best horror movies do. I got some strong vibes from like The Exorcist, The Omen, movies like that, and Rosemary's Baby, of course. I've heard Rosemary's Baby mentioned a few times in the news and reviews about this movie. And it's funny because I just rewatched Rosemary's Baby and I reviewed it. And I fell in love with the movie all over again because I haven't seen it in like 15, 20 years. But it's one of those movies. It deals with a family. You know, Rosemary, she's pregnant. She's having a baby, but she happens to be having the baby of the devil. And so that might have something to do with this movie. But we will delve into that into the spoiler section. Now, I really, really want to talk about the performances in this movie because this deals with some heavy, dark stuff. And I think you have to have a great performance in this because also it deals with mourning. It deals with death. And Toni Collette and Alex Wolfe, those two, please just give them Oscars. There's a scene of mourning with Toni Collette's character that sent shivers down my spine. It really did. And it just felt real, you know, because we've seen crying and mourning in movies before, but we can still tell that there's like a screen in front of us. This felt like it was, you know, literally in our living room or wherever we're watching this movie, I guess in the theater. It just felt so real, like heartbreaking. And I had like a whirlwind of emotions during not only her scenes, but also Alex's scenes. Or Peter, played by Alex Wolfe. You know, I just had this like whirlwind of emotions while watching them just completely emote. And I'm sure that they must have been exhausted after completing this movie because you can tell that it took something out of them, especially Alex Wolfe, who plays Peter. There's a scene with Peter where there's an accident that happens and there's like, you know, a director has different ways that he can film a scene. And I think for this particular scene, it's filmed in a very unconventional way. Instead of focusing on the accident itself, it focuses right on Peter's face. This is where true acting comes into play because a camera is sitting there in front of his face for what feels like 5 minutes, could be shorter. And his face just has to go through these emotions almost like in denial. And then all of a sudden it like dawns on him. And then this just like outpouring of emotion and fear. All those emotions are played in that scene where the camera is just literally right there in front of his face. And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And it's one of those acting performances that you're going to see maybe once a year, if that, maybe a couple times a year if you go to the movies every single weekend. Also, the horror aspect of this movie, a lot of the marketing was that this is one of the most unsettling movies, and it's true. There are scenes in this movie that are completely unsettling, especially in the third act, and some of you might have trouble sleeping at night. And some of you, like me, will just be more in like, I felt almost exhausted, and still I can't get it out of my head. Like there are images and scenes in this movie that are just mesmerizing. But the big thing is I love the family dynamic of this movie. I pondered over a rating for this, and that's part of the reason why I haven't reviewed it yet. And I still, like this is the first review where I can't give you my, I guess honestly I can be honest with you, but I can't decide on the rating. It's either a super high purchase worthy or Trapped on an Island. So for the sake of this review and for the sake of the first time watch, and I do think like the best movies are not always completely loved the first time you see them, which I did love this one. I'm going to reserve this for a high purchase worthy because when I originally walked out of the theater, I felt like there were some pacing issues, like it could have been tightened down just a bit, but I have a feeling after a couple more viewings, it'll all make sense to me. And I think a lot of those slower moments serve a major purpose in this movie. And if you didn't have them, then maybe you wouldn't get the same effect. So yeah, so high purchase worthy right now. But I'll still file this in Trapped on an Island because I'm thinking when I do watch it a second time, it might bump it up to that as far as my playlist goes. But now, spoiler talk. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you have been warned. Okay, now spoilers. What I loved about the ending of this movie was that it was literal. You know, it kind of reminded me of the way the ritual was handled. I thought the ritual was going to go one way, whereas you didn't know quite for sure what the big threat was in the end. And then it was just boom, right there in front of your face, and it looked like this demonic creature from another planet. That's the way this one was. Annie's mother originally wanted Peter, but Annie would not let her have Peter. But she did let her have Charlie, because Annie's mother was in this like witch cult where they are worshiping like the 5th king of hell. And if you read behind the scenes, Ari Aster said, you know, the devil is played out. So let's dig a little deeper and let's actually pick like the 5th king of hell instead of the straight up hell. So it's a little shallow, his reasoning behind picking, I think it's Paimon. But yeah, this is really just a witch cult. That's what it is. And so the ultimate goal here is for Paimon to take possession of Peter's body. That's the end game. And so I think that's part of the reason why Peter was going through all these crazy emotions through. Part of the reason why Charlie acted kind of strange, because she was possessed by Paimon, because Paimon had to take a male form, but instead he was stuck with Charlie. And then, of course, Charlie's death scene was pretty insane, because, you know, they go to this party, and then when they're leaving the party, just abruptly, Peter, his car swerves and they go into this light pole, and then Charlie's decapitated. And so it was really crazy in the end of the movie to see this like statue of Paimon with Charlie's head on top of it. And all that imagery will give you nightmares, because they had to pretty much decapitate, you know, the family members for this cult. Insane ending, guys. Holy crap. I can't believe I'm even like saying. It's just, what a movie. What a movie. And Ari Aster, well done, sir. I love horror movies that are so thought-provoking. I didn't even mention The Witch in this, but The Witch is another one of those movies that just really gets under your skin and just stays with you. And it's very artsy, but also it's creepy as hell, and just, yeah. So there's my Hereditary review for you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. I got my Coexist shirt on from the horror show. Big shout out to them. They actually did a podcast, which I was supposed to be a part of, but my anniversary was that weekend, and I didn't get to make it. But they talked Hereditary, and be sure to check that out. I'll post a card here for that. They talked Hereditary with Cody Leach and CP from Will I Like Her Reviews. So really cool discussion there, and I think it went on for a couple hours. Anyway, guys, follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and now Stardust. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.